Welcome to this video brought to you by Observian. I'm Ryan and I'm going to be leading the course today. Right now I'm going to show you some of my favorite features that can be performed in Sheets. These are all very common functions and features that I'm sure you've run into in Excel. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you the Sheets version and how to do it in Sheets. And then I'm going to go over into an Excel spreadsheet with the same data and show you how it would have been done in Excel, just so that you can see the comparison and how functional Sheets is. So let's get started right away. Right here, we've just got some data, and I'm just wanting to sum our total. So I'm going to select sum. I'm going to select my values. And if you notice, it's already summed it here for me to give me the results of what it's going to show. Close out my parentheses, hit enter. There's our sum. And if you want to change how many decimal places you're showing, just like in Excel, you can come here to the top ribbon and choose from there. Now we're going to do an average function, so we're going to hit our equal sign to start an equation. Type out average. I'm going to take everything I have, close it out. So here's our sum, here's our average. We can format it as we need to. So let's go do the same thing in Excel. Same data set, and you're even going to use the exact same formula. So I'll hit my equal sign, type sum, and now I can just come over here, select everything that I want to sum, close out my parentheses, and we've summed it. Do the same with average. Open my parentheses, come select my data, close it out. If you want to, in Excel or in Sheets, if you don't want to manually select your data, all you have to do is hit G:, G. That's going to take all of row G, give you the same. In this next tab, we're going to show if functions and some if functions. So we've decided for this spreadsheet we want to get a little more granular with our detail, and we want to say any region of East is going to have the New York City office in it. The central region is going to have Kansas City, and the west region here is going to have Portland. So how are we going to do that in our spreadsheet really easily? Well, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to insert one to the left so that we have another column here. And then I'm going to go ahead and type office. And now I'm going to start my equation. So it's going to be an ifs equation. And my first condition is going to be if B, all of column B, is equal to East, then I want to return New York. Now I want to say again, if B is equal to Central, then we want to return Kansas City. And our last if statement is going to be if all of column B again is equal to West, then we want to insert Portland. Close out our parentheses. Double click to send it all the way down. Look at that. Central, Kansas City, East, New York, West, Portland. That's perfect. Now what we can do is we can sum by, or use a sum if function to say, okay, well, give me the total for everything in New York, give me the total for everything in Kansas, and do the same for Portland. So that's going to be a sum if function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to search column C, and I'm going to say if it matches New York here, so that's going to be K6, then sum everything in row or column H. Now if we just drag that down, we've summed anywhere where it says New York. It'll add this line, and let's see, this line, and all the New York lines to a total of $6,002. Does the same for Kansas City and Portland. So let's hop over to Excel and see if it's any different. First thing I want to do is insert a column. So I'm going to hit Insert. I'm going to name it the same way. And we're going to start our ifs function. So let's take a look at that. Column B again. And let's say if that's equal to East, let's return New York. So this is going to follow the exact same pattern that we were using in Sheets. I'll do the same for Central. Return Kansas City. And let's do the same for Portland. Spread this out so we can see them all. So now we want to do the same thing that we had done in Sheets. So we're going to use a SUMIF and say anything in column C that matches New York here, which is K6, go ahead and sum column H for us. Close out our parentheses. And look at that. The same answers that we had in Sheets using the exact same formulas. Now let's move on to a Countif. Countif can be really useful if you just need a total of how many whatevers, how many times Jones shows up on a spreadsheet or in a particular column. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to use this to see how many clients each one of these account reps is working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my equal sign and then do Countif. And I'm going to say C, column C, all of it. And then I'm going to set it equal to our account executive here. I'm going to close it off. Simple as that. Look at that. Jones currently has 8 clients. And we can do the same, just pull it down, and we'll do it for all of these different account executives. Let's take a look at Excel and see if it's any different. Here we are in Excel, and you can see I'm using the same data set, and I just want to do my Countifs. So I'm going to hit my equal sign, say Countif, and I'm going to do all of column C, and if column C matches my account executive, and I'm going to close my parenthesis. Pull it down. Nice and easy. So that's a really quick way to use a Countif function in both Excel and Sheets. Okay, now we're going to look at VLOOKUPs. Now, a VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup, and what it'll do is it'll reference the first column of any table and then return values based on what you set. So right now, what I want to do is return the account executive's total. So this number, but I want it to change as I type in each different name here. The way we're going to do that, we're going to start our equation. It's a vertical lookup, and our search key is going to be right here. Now, I'm making the search key something that we can change frequently, and so right now it's going to be looking for Jones. And then I'm going to set my table limits, so I'm going to select that whole data set. And then I'm going to set the index. So the index is the column that you want to actually pull data from. So my whole table, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the number I want. So I'm going to put a 7 in here, and then I'm going to say false. If I put true, it'll just look for something close to what I'm looking for. If I put false, it'll only bring me an exact match. So it's rare that you'll want to put true there, and it'll default to false if you don't put anything in. Look at that. Jones, Jones, rep total, rep total. But if I want to say Smith, it changes our number for us. So these can be really useful if you want to build graphs based off of this, and then you can put in each employee's name, and it'll automatically generate all of your different functions that you need to use. Let's go take a look at the Vlookup here in Excel. So it's actually going to be the exact same function, and it's going to work the same way. What I'm going to do is a Vlookup, and I'm going to use my rep, and then I'm going to set my table array. I'm just going to select all my data, and I'm going to say 7 again, because that's the column I want to pull from, and I'm going to set it to false. Look at that. Changes with everything to each rep that you put in. Now what happens if I take this out? Well, NA, it's referencing an empty cell, so it doesn't know what to do. Same thing will happen in Sheets as well. So just make sure when you're working in Sheets, you understand what you're referencing and don't get frustrated by that. So all we have to do is come in here, take a look, and say, oh look, there's an empty box that it's clearly referencing. There we go. The last thing I want to show you is how easy it is to build a pivot table in Sheets and in Excel. So first we're going to do it in Sheets. So I'm going to select my data, and then I'm going to come over to Data, Pivot Table, and I'm going to create the pivot table in a new sheet, and it's already referencing everything that I have highlighted. So the index match of everything in A through everything through G. That'll build on a new sheet. And now we can add our values, rows and columns, and filters. So, or we can also use the suggested, which I find really useful. Let's just do a suggested average really quickly. And look at that. Average of units is what it's given us. But let's say we want to build our own. I want to say my values So I want to set my columns to include the item, okay? And then I want to set my row to be the rep, the individual rep, and now I want to set my values to the total. So I want to know how much of each one of these things has these rep been involved in. That's how easy it is to edit, create, and do everything with a pivot table in Sheets. Now let's take a look at Excel. Okay, so now let's create a pivot table in Excel. To do that, I'm first going to select my data. And remember with pivot tables, it's very important that you select the right data. If you have any empty fields or anything like that, it will show up in the pivot table, and it can be annoying to track down. So just make sure you grab all the data you want, nothing more, nothing less. And then I'm going to come to Insert, Pivot Table. You can see that this is matched everything that I've selected. It's going to open in a new worksheet. And here we are. So let's set it up the same way we set up our pivot table in Sheets. It looks a little different over here, but it functions very easily. So what we're going to do is select our rep. And I'm just going to drag it down. We want that as our rows. So here's our rows of reps. And now I want the column to be our items. So here's a column. And now I'm going to set the total to our values. It'll populate that for us. So there's our pivot table, easily created in Excel and Sheets as well. I hope you were able to learn a little something today, and let me know if you have any questions or want to see how other functions compare in Sheets and Excel. Thanks.